Good morning, everyone. We're so glad to have you here on this nice sunny day here in early February. If you would rise as you're able and join us in singing Where Do We Come From, number 1003 in the teal. Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? Where are we going? Where do we come from? Where are we going? Where do we come from? Where are we going? Where do we come from? Where are we going? Where do we come from? Where are we going? Where do we come from? Where are we going? Where do we come from? Where are we going? Mystery, mystery, life is a riddle and a mystery. Mystery, mystery, life is a riddle and a mystery. Mystery, mystery, life is a riddle and a mystery. Mystery, mystery, life is a riddle and a mystery.
How about now? How about now? Okay. How about? I'm gonna freelance it. I'll be out here. Good morning. Welcome to our Sunday service. If you're here in person or if you're participating online, we are glad to be with you. I'm Courtney O'Neill. I'm today's worship associate. And Roger's sermon today is entitled, What is the Center of Unitarian Universalism? Reverend Lucy is away this weekend. She's leading a spiritual retreat for 45 women from the congregation. The mission of our congregation says, we come together to deepen our lives and be a force for healing in the world. To this end, we acknowledge that UUSS exists on the occupied ancestral territory of the Nisenan, Southern Maidu, and Miwok people. We acknowledge that they are the past, current, and future caretakers of this land. As we seek to develop this beloved community, let this acknowledgement be a first step toward the respect for Indigenous peoples' lives, history, and voices. Our weekly message comes out on email every Friday with announcements and a note from our minister. You can find it on our website. If you'd like to follow what's happening today with an order of service, a printed copy is on the table back by the doors, or you can click the link in the Zoom. Our weekly blue sheet announcements are also on the back table and also online. If you'd like to sing the hymns with musical notations and not just the words on the slide, feel free to pick up a gray hymnal and a blue songbook back there from the cart by the door. Just a few highlights from the blue sheet. The Depression Peer Support Program will meet at 12:15 today in rooms 7 and 8. Also, today is a Soup Sunday. Our hosts are volunteers in family ministry and religious education. After the service, when you leave the sanctuary, go to your left and join the line that will be forming behind the wall. It will bring you past the menu and put you in the right place. Your free will donation is welcome for soup, bread, and a cookie, and of course, conversation with new friends. Next Sunday is a very full day at UUSS. Before the service is a racial equity orientation. This is part of a 4-part series that repeats the second Sunday of every month. The focus next Sunday will be white supremacy culture characteristics and their antidotes. The orientation is open to all who would like to learn more about racial equity and what we're doing here at UUSS. It's at 9:30 in the FOS room, and childcare is available. After the service is our monthly newcomer orientation with a tour of the campus. This lasts an hour. Also next Sunday, we are holding the first ever reception entitled Getting to Know UUSS. It will be after the service in the FOS classroom on February 12th. You are invited to meet UUSS leaders for refreshment and learn how the Board of Trustees, Program Council, Nominating Committee, and Endowment Committee operate with volunteers elected by the congregation, and learn about other activities and opportunities that help the congregation to thrive. We will also share information that can help you grow spiritually and serve our beloved community. We hope you will join us. To make it easier, childcare will be provided until 1:15 next Sunday. If you're new to UUSS, we are so glad that you are here. Please fill out a newcomer's card, either by the link to our website or at the welcome table in the hall after the service so that we can connect with you. For those at home, after the service, we have 12 minutes of conversation in Zoom breakout rooms. Here on campus, you can check out the connection tables inside, enjoy coffee, tea, and conversation. And now is the time to turn your cell phone to silent mode so that we can all experience the service without any distractions. Welcome. Now, we will be receiving the music for centering. Note that the candles for the joys and sorrows are set up at the tables over to the side. If during the music you feel moved to light a candle or leave a joy or a sorrow, please do so. Thank you. Archer comes up to light the chalice here, if you have a candle or a chalice at home, this is the time to get it ready to light. The flaming chalice represents our broader Unitarian Universalist religious heritage and our connections to the congregations across this country and around the world. As we prepare to kindle its flame now and affirm together the mission of our own congregation here at home, we come together to deepen our lives and to be a force for healing in the world.
In deepening our lives and being a force for healing in the world, it's time for kids of the congregation to continue that process. So if you would gather on up here to the front before we send you on your way. And of course, we sing, you gotta put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. Put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. You gotta put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. Put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. I know you're scared, and I'm scared too, but here I am, right next to you. You gotta put one foot in front of the other. One foot, and lead with love. You gotta put one foot in front of the other one. One foot, and lead with love.
Good morning. It's good to be with all of you. Thank you for being with us. We receive joys and sorrows and requests for prayers every week through a link that you can find in our weekly message email. And then on the first Sunday of the month, we have cards that you can fill out and you can light candles. So this morning, we extend prayers for healing for a number of people who've had medical procedures or those who will have one soon. Elle Harlow, the daughter of Dave and Tiki Harlow, had leg surgery last week for a torn ACL. And our member Karen Hirsch will have surgery this Tuesday for a hip replacement. Karen says she hopes it will bring more joy to my life once I'm recovered. And I appreciate any and all good wishes folks want to send my way. Michael O'Neill's uncle, Greg, had a heart attack and fell this past week. Greg is currently in the ICU with multiple vertebrae fractures, broken ribs, and nose, and is on a ventilator in grave condition. Let us hold Greg in our prayers and our care for his family and for all those we know who are dealing with a medical crisis of their own or of a loved one. We extend loving wishes for healing and prayers for strength. Other concerns or sorrows, Steve Hoverman lets us know that Lucille Lansing has passed away, a longtime participant in our congregation. She passed away at 94, quietly after having COVID twice and then having pneumonia. Celia and Marion write, our senior dog and young dog are aggressively fighting for alpha position. We now must keep them separated most of the time. Mackenzie lifts up a sorrow for my mother and grandmother. My grandma passed away 2 weeks ago, and it has been extremely hard for us since our family is so spread out. I hope my mother knows I am here for her during this time. Theo expresses the sorrow that a dear friend's mother was diagnosed with cancer again after being cancer-free for 6 years. We are all thinking of her. Michael mentions the sorrow. Condolences for the family of Braden Choop on their early, unexpected loss of Braden. Annika has the sorrow and writes that my dog Luna got attacked by Rex, my other dog. There are also many requests for wishes and prayers and support. One among us writes, I'm starting a long-term substitute teaching job tomorrow with a group of challenging first graders. Pray for me. And of course, we are lifted by the joys that one another hold and share. Diana writes, new semester, new group of amazing educational leaders, new chances for healing, community, and good trouble. Archer writes this joy, I like the way my grandma and grandpa's house looks. It is neat and pretty. Jack writes, I am happy for New Year's. Charlie writes, I am happy that the groundhog saw his shadow. Joyce lifts up the joy for her daughter and prayers for continued healthy pregnancy for her daughter in Pennsylvania. Pat Davis writes, after 38 years of bachelorhood, my son is being married on May 20th. I'm thrilled both by the marriage and the lovely woman he is marrying. And one among us writes, my joy is that I'm a Spotlight student. Susan Carlson writes, I am thrilled to have our son and daughter here this weekend from Chicago and Turlock, respectively, to celebrate their dad's birthday. We wish Richard good health and a happy birthday. Courtney writes that we are celebrating that we have finally discovered a swimming school the twins feel comfortable in, and for the first time they are not afraid of water or learning to swim. And Jim Eastman writes, I am joyful for my brother Cecil because 1, he sent me a letter. 2, it was handwritten. And 3, in it he shared the wonderful things happening in his life, including successfully auditioning for a stage role in the city of Chicago. Let us give thanks for all that has been shared and all that we hold in our hearts. Let us give thanks for the gift of life and the gift of this new day. I invite you to receive this day and these moments by taking a few deep breaths with me, breathing in deeply, pausing for a moment, and then exhaling deeply. In. And now another time, and this time let's sigh on the deep exhale, breathing in deeply. And now a third deep breath in, and on the out breath, a sigh that is full of our spirit. And please join me in the spirit of prayer. O breath of life, spirit of love, draw near to us. Bring us peace when we need it. Let us share peace when we can. Remind us of the power of kindness and patience. When we are sad, hurting, mournful, and in need, bless us with comfort. When we feel uncertain in our lives, steady us. When we worry about our community, this country, and the planet, remind us that we are not alone in our concerns. Urge us to reach out, make connections, build relationships. When we know the need for more justice, more dignity, more freedom, more love, give us the courage to bear witness to our values, to bear witness with love. Give us the humility not to have all the answers. Give us patience. Give us openness. O breath of life, Spirit of love, be with us now and in the days to come. Bring us peace when we need it. Lead us to extend peace and share it when we can. So may it be. Blessed be. Amen. And now let us pause for a few moments of silence for our own meditations and prayers. Blessed be.
Sing 86, Blessed Spirit of my life. Blessed Spirit of my life, give me strength through stress and strife. Help me live with dignity. Let me know serenity. Fill me with a vision. Clear my mind of fear and confusion. When my thoughts flow restlessly, let peace find a home in me. Spirit of great mystery, hear the still small voice in me. Help me live my wordless creed as I comfort those in need. Fill me with compassion, be the source of my intuition. Then when life is done for me, let love be my legacy.
I was privileged to be here last week when we had Reverend Alex de Silva Sauto here as our guest minister. They delivered a very thoughtful homily. If you haven't heard it, I encourage you to check it out online. For those that did hear their homily, how did you feel? Did you feel encouraged, inspired, uncomfortable? I felt uncomfortable at certain points. But I also felt a strange feeling that took me a moment to identify. And then I realized that I wasn't worried about feeling uncomfortable. That feeling uncomfortable was okay, even encouraged. The path of love is our Soul Matters theme for February. I spend a lot of time thinking about love and what it means to truly love someone. What I've come to better understand as I've gotten older is that loving means that I am consciously, purposefully opening myself up to being uncomfortable. I remember when I was a new parent, I was constantly uncomfortable. When I was on maternity leave from work with Rebecca, who's now 10, I was terrified to go to the grocery store with her because what would I do if she began to cry in the middle of the store and I couldn't calm her down? What would I do? Where would I put the groceries? Where would I go? This was uncharted territory. Feeling uncomfortable has continued in various ways throughout Michael's and my parenting journey. Just when we think we are rocking this, our kids hit some milestone or developmental change that causes us, their parents, discomfort, whether it's puberty, dealing with anxiety, or even just the constant, unrelenting challenge of having 3 kids, all with very strong, competing personalities. I think about being uncomfortable as a wife and partner. Michael and I have been together for almost 17 years, and one thing I have learned to deeply appreciate is how we can have discussions, debates, and, yes, arguments. We have to hold each other accountable, and it's not always fun. Sometimes we both feel deeply uncomfortable. But that discomfort is a part of the promise that we made to each other when we got married, that we would witness each other's journey through life, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And through that witnessing, we've developed intimacy and long-standing trust. Over the years, I've realized that my closest friends and my chosen family are those who can all hold space in some degree for discomfort. We can disagree and debate. We can recognize that our points of view will never match up, but we can still listen to and respect each other's points of view. And we can understand that each one has their own truth. So all of these thoughts were swirling in my head as I listened to last week's homily. I was also thinking about how I am a person of privilege. I'm white. I was raised by middle-class parents. They took it for granted that I would go to college, and I did. There are privileges from my own life experience that I carry, privileges that sometimes I don't even think to consider. I am so glad that this community is one that embraces me and my identity. And if you remember from last week's message, there is nothing inherently wrong with any of our identities. But I also love that this community asks me to remember that my identity and my experience are just one. And there are so many others with their own rich experiences that I can appreciate. To appreciate that we are a safe place for many, and to recognize that we can always do more to continue to hold that safe space. That can provoke feelings of discomfort. I think, though, that this awareness that we are always striving to evolve as a UU community and as individuals, I think that this is the most profound expression of love.
Thank you. This congregation has a spiritual practice of generosity. We've had it for several years. This practice is that we give away half of every Sunday morning's offering to an organization doing important work in the community, which is aligned with our mission to be a force for healing in the world. And our community partner for this month of February is the FEA Nature Center, which is in Ansel Hoffman Park in Carmichael, not far from here. The Nature Center has a mission of bringing people to nature and nature to people. It has interpretive exhibits. It has miles and miles of walking trails along the American River. It has animal ambassadors, birds of prey, reptiles, mammals, and it has programs for people of all ages, including school children, especially from schools that are in economically depressed areas. Among our many UUSS volunteers, our longtime member Nancy Opershaw spends one day a week with little children there, telling them stories, showing them the pleasures of nature, of the out of doors at the Nature Center. This is a gem of our community. It used to be part of the county, and now it receives no government funding. It relies only on grants and donations from people like us. On the slide, you can see how you can contribute to the shared offering, either online, electronically, or by sending in a check to UUSS. You can even donate by text from home or from your seat here in the sanctuary. Our offering will now be given and received. Thank you for your support.
Please join me in speaking the words of response to the offering, which will appear on the slide.
May generosity bless our work. May gratitude nourish our spirits.
Two weeks from today, the Reverend Nancy Palmer Jones from San Jose will be our guest preacher, and she will be leading a workshop on that Saturday morning, the day before. You can read more about it at the connections table or in the weekly message. Nancy will be coming here as part of our series of sermons about the Unitarian Universalist movement entitled Finding Our Way to the Future, the Purpose and Promise of Unitarian Universalism. Today, for my part, I would like to reflect on the center of the UU tradition. What do you mean by the center, you might ask? Some Unitarian Universalists, especially ministers, have worried out loud for a long time about whether this religion has a center and whether we can name that center. In the late 1990s, when I was a new minister in the UU movement, there were conversations, lectures, essays, and arguments, mostly among ministers, that dealt with the question about whether we have a religious center or theological center and what it might be. In this country, Unitarian Universalism goes back nearly 2.5 centuries. After all that time, we have transformed ourselves into a broad movement with a variety of religious perspectives. Our embrace of pluralism could be why some people fret so much about how to define our theological center. These worries have tempted some UUs to emphasize or stress only one dimension of our heritage and insist that that must be our center. For example, a number of UUs have argued that God must be at the center. After all, our faith emerged out of Christian heresies about the nature of God. Along with the Universalists, the early Unitarians said that the Jewish and Christian scriptures make it clear that human beings are made in the image of God. But unlike their Puritan Calvinist neighbors, our ancestors said that this divine image gives us worth, dignity, and freedom. While human beings can cause terrible destruction and we can be cruel, we are not inherently depraved. We are lovable because we are created by divine love. This is a powerful aspect of our heritage, but it's not the only part. Many other UUs have argued that our center was found in humanism and the practice of ethical but non-theistic religion. This approach goes back to the middle of the 1800s. Humanism really caught fire in many of our congregations in the 1920s, and it was dominant for decades in many of them. Humanism celebrates the use of reason, scientific discovery, artistic expression, and intellectual discussions in UU congregations. Religious humanists proclaimed the goals of human flourishing and equality, and a world at peace. To do this, they saw no need to refer to divine influences. The existence of God was not relevant, not necessary, and probably not a good idea. Given how much repression of the human spirit has been caused by traditional religious organizations, this was a refreshing antidote. Human reason, human love, that's enough. This is also a powerful aspect of our heritage. Yet to argue that one of these theological threads has to be our center and the other one should stay on the sidelines, or all of the other ones should stay on the sidelines, is to forget something important about our UU fabric. We don't have a creed. Nobody has to agree to a confession of faith or any other set of beliefs to become a member of a UU church. To be sure, in matters of conscience and faith, we can talk, learn, ask questions, we can challenge one another's ideas, but there is no forcing of beliefs, no coercion in matters of religious truth. This is why we affirm the free and responsible search for truth and meaning. When all of the strands are connected in our UU fabric, it makes us rich spiritually. In our tradition, it is the connections that make a crucial difference. Whatever else might be at our center, our tradition has always been about relationships. Maybe our center is relationship. Consider the Universalists. In making the case for universal salvation in the late 1700s, making the case for no hell, they argued that the divine is a loving parent, not a cruel one or a fickle one. And if all the people around the earth are children of the same God, then we are all kin, all family. In other words, whether we like it or not, we are stuck with each other. We are in relationship with each other. As one Universalist preached in the 1800s, if we're going to be together in heaven forever, we might as well learn to get along while we're here now. Relationship is key. Now consider our Unitarian ancestors. In the early 1800s, they rose up within the Congregational churches of New England. And while they broke away from Orthodox theology, the Unitarians retained the congregational form of church governance. And this form goes all the way back to 1648. In that year, leaders from a few dozen churches held an assembly in Cambridge, Massachusetts. And they came up with a document, they ratified it over several days, and it's called the Cambridge Platform. And we still follow much of what it laid out. Simply put, the Cambridge Platform means that each congregation is free to make its own decisions, including its choice of lay leaders and ministers. No bishop or hierarchy exists to make these decisions, and the state is not allowed to make them either. In this form of governance, a congregation consists only of people who join it freely. When Reverend Lucy and I have the opportunity to witness the signing of the UUSS membership book by a new member, we explain to this member that by joining the congregation, they become part of the congregation. They enter into relationship with all of the other members. They enter a covenant. The Reverend Alice Blair Wesley is a UU minister who is an expert on our place in the congregational tradition, especially the tradition of covenant. In a series of lectures she gave 23 years ago, Alice said that the spiritual center of the congregational tradition has to do with covenant. A covenant is like a set of promises that individuals make to one another. It outlines the common values and aspirations of people who join freely in relationship with one another. A covenant says, this is why we are together. This is how we will treat one another. We are not a church with a creed. We are a people in relationship who work out our shared goals and values. As you may have read or heard earlier, next Sunday after church, we have our first reception entitled Getting to Know UUSS. And representatives of a number of our committees will explain briefly what they do. There will be refreshments too. And these representatives will tell you some of the ways that we live out our covenant in volunteer service to this congregation. We hope you can stay for it next Sunday. Alice Blair Wesley has paraphrased those very old early congregational covenants in this way, quoting, "We pledge to travel together in the spirit of mutual love. The spirit of love is alone worthy of our ultimate loyalty, our religious loyalty. To this end, we shall meet often to learn and take counsel concerning the ways of love. We will grant religious authority to our understanding of the ways of love as best we can figure them out together. Alice has noted that even though differences of culture and philosophy separate us 21st century people from our congregational ancestors 4 centuries ago, they understood their religion was about living by the spirit of love, living by the spirit of care in community. You know, as I was typing at my computer, typing this sermon this weekend, I hit the paste key to insert something that I'd cut from another part of the sermon. But something else appeared unexpectedly, out of place. Has that ever happened to you? What appeared was a line from a draft of the pastoral prayer, which I used this morning. And the line said, for all those we know who are dealing with a medical crisis of their own or of a loved one, we extend our loving wishes for healing and prayers for strength. It just popped in there. But it wasn't out of place, because I was writing that in a congregation based on covenant, it is expected that people will extend care and love to one another. It's clear now to me that the center of our faith is love. Love is what lies at the center of a covenant, whether it's between individuals or within a community. Love is the value that reminds us of our connections, our blessings, and our responsibilities as human beings. It is love which makes us long for a world that is more just, fair, safe, and free. Dr. Cornel West has said, justice is what love looks like in public. As we show up, work, give, speak out, and write letters and cards, it is love which motivates us. Love calls us to the practice of empathy. It reassures us with gestures of kindness. The spirit of love is at the center of Unitarian Universalism. It's been there since it drew our religious ancestors into communities of covenant, since it inspired them to proclaim that we are all part of one human family. It can be easy to take the word love at the surface level. It has a warm sound. It's easy to say, love. Yet putting it into practice is not easy much of the time. As Courtney said earlier, to love takes us into uncharted territory. The journey can include feelings of discomfort, uncertainty, frustration, and loss. Whether it is a marriage, a friendship, or a spiritual community, the practice of love includes bearing witness to another's life, as Courtney said. It means holding space for discomfort or disagreement in our relationships. Here at UUSS, when an enthusiastic newcomer wants to join the church right away, Reverend Lucy is known to give this advice. Well, get involved, hang around, keep coming back, and then wait until you are disappointed about something at UUSS for the first time. And if you still want to stick around, if you still want to be involved, in spite of that disappointment, then you know that this is your community. That is why covenants exist. Love is a spiritual practice because it is easier to say than it is to live by. A covenant among members of a congregation is a pledge to openness to one another and openness to the Spirit. In the historical words of Alice Blair Wesley, we pledge to travel together in the spirit of mutual love. We will grant religious authority to our understanding of the ways of love as best we can figure them out together. A covenant can connect not only individual people within a congregation, it connects our congregations with one another. UUSS is a member of the Unitarian Universalist Association. We choose to join with 1,047 other congregations, and we provide mutual support and we promote shared values through that association. This coming June, at the next General Assembly of our UU Association, delegates from congregations like ours will vote on proposed revisions to the official statement of our UU principles and purposes. These are listed in Article 2 of the Association's bylaws. The year 1985 was the last time Article 2 was revised, and we still use those principles from 1985. They include words which are inspiring and demanding. Words like freedom, compassion, dignity, spiritual growth, justice, interdependence, democracy. But missing from that list of principles is the short word, love. The UUA Board of Trustees, a couple years ago, appointed the volunteers to this Article 2 commission and gave them their charge. The charge says there's no required format for the new principles and purposes. There's no magic number of them. They don't even have to be numbered. But no matter what else it looks like, the revised Article 2 should put love at the center. For a year, the Article 2 Commission asked leaders and congregations across the country to provide input. It held conversations at the General Assembly last June. Recently, the Commission released its report and its proposal for the new Article 2 language. This is part of the proposed language. And I should say, if you're interested, we will have a number of workshops and conversations, including before service on the last Sunday of this month in the Exploring UUism class. This is the proposed new language. As Unitarian Universalists, we covenant congregation to congregation and through our association to support and assist one another in our ministries. We draw from our heritages of freedom, reason, hope, and courage. We build on the foundation of love. Love is the power that holds us together and is at the center of our shared values. We are accountable to one another for doing the work of living our shared values through the spiritual discipline of love. Inseparable from one another, these are the shared values: interdependence, justice, equity, generosity, pluralism, transformation. At the center of them and uniting all of them is love. End of quotation. May we see the slide now? This is a slide of a graphic from this commission. It was designed by Tanya Webster from the UU congregation in San Mateo. And you'll see the image in the center of the slide is a flaming chalice with an overlay of the word love over the flame. 6 outstretched arms create a circle around each of those core values, and they form a 6-petal flower. Each petal is a different color. Clockwise, they are interdependence in orange, equity in red, transformation in purple, pluralism in dark blue, generosity in teal, and justice in yellow. In the proposed Article 2 revision, there's a short paragraph about each of these values, and that would, if voted in, would appear in our bylaws. So Here's an example of one of those paragraphs about pluralism. Pluralism means the coexistence of a variety of cultural and religious orientations. Here's what it says about pluralism. We celebrate that we are all sacred beings, diverse in culture, experience, and theology. We covenant to learn from one another in our free and responsible search for truth and meaning. We embrace our differences and commonalities with love, curiosity, and respect. You may take the slide down now. Love is at the center. It is why we do what we do. As I was typing the sermon yesterday on the computer, something else came to my attention. Usually I don't look at email when I'm writing a sermon because it's easy for me to be distracted, and I was. But I was copied on email exchanges among 4 adult volunteers leading an Our Whole Lives program here at UUSS. OWL is a comprehensive sexuality education program offered in UU congregations. Volunteers for it make a commitment to be trained and background checked and then to serve for much of a year. They commit to working as a team for several months to teach OWL. And the values of OWL include honesty, responsibility, respect, and relationship. By learning those values, whatever age we might be, we learn to put love at the center of life. Love of self and love for others. The email that I saw was from one teacher to the others in the group. She was unexpectedly going to be out of town for the weekend and was asking if another of the volunteers could cover her duties. If not, she said she could get up and drive back early Sunday morning. The first reply came quickly, "Sure thing." And then the others followed suit. "We got you. Have a good trip. Travel safely." In any relationship, in any community based on covenant, our promises are important. This may seem obvious, but I don't have to think very long or look very far to remember times and places in my life where promises weren't reliable or sincere. And as important as a promise is the willingness to give grace to each other. The Spirit of love motivates us to give grace, show patience, practice forgiveness. He calls us to give thanks for one another as well. If living with love were easy, it would not be a religious value. It would just be a normal part of life. There wouldn't be stories about love in action, poems and prayers about it, rituals and ceremonies. There wouldn't be hymns about the commitments that love calls us to make. Love is the spirit which helps us to keep our promises. It sustains us when our choices are not easy ones. When we feel daunted or uncertain, love steadies us. Love calls us into community where we can seek hope and strength and care. Love calls us together so that we might share these gifts with one another, hope and strength and care. The Spirit of love holds us up and holds us together. The Spirit of love calls us to give thanks for the gift of life. It calls us to give thanks for the gift of one another. So may it be. Blessed be, and amen.
Please join me in speaking the words on the slide as we prepare to extinguish the chalice. We extinguish this flame, but we carry the light, love, and commitment of this gathering into the days to come.
I invite you to reach out to one another, reach out to us. If you're at home, reach out to us here, and we reach out to you. May you depart in peace and return in joy. And for all who see God, may God go with you. For all who embrace life, may life return your affection. And for all who seek a right path, may a way be found and the courage to take it step by step, one day at a time. Blessed be.